in South Korea yet. It's fine. Things are slowly but surely coming along, and I still am hoping to be on a plane headed there sometime next week. But in the meantime, I thought it would be great if I could do a video that kind of addressed some questions and gave you guys some pretty easy steps for how to become an English teacher in South Korea or anywhere if that's something that you're interested in doing. I still remember when I was in my senior year of college back in 2020, and it was a spring semester, and I was kind of like scratching my head wondering like, what do I want to do after I graduate? I knew that living abroad was always something that was like on my radar screen. I loved traveling, and so I felt pretty comfortable saying that living in a different country was definitely something that I wanted to do. So then fast forward, I talked to a friend who I knew who was doing the whole teaching English abroad thing, and it was so helpful to have some inside information from somebody who had like been through a certification program and then had found a job before I set out to do the exact same thing. So that's what I want to do for you guys, is just give you kind of a quick like teaching English abroad 101, tips and tricks, things you should look out for, and some programs you might want to look into if this is something that you want to do. I'm going to talk about teaching in Europe, but I'm also going to mostly focus on teaching English in Asia, since that's obviously what I'm about to do. So let's start getting certified. You don't need to have a degree in teaching, which is awesome because I don't have a degree in teaching. Like I said earlier, I have a degree in art history, so it's not related at all. What you do need, though, is a really good TEFL certification. So TEFL, if you didn't know, stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. And there are a couple different versions of TEFL classes, so you really want to look for one that is certified either through Trinity, so TEFL, or CELTA, which is Cambridge, and those are kind of the two most internationally recognized TEFL programs out there. Beware of programs that offer more local certifications. I remember getting some emails from schools that were, offering programs, and they would guarantee you a spot at their school if you took their program. That seems like a great deal at first, except that most of the time those programs you will only be certified to teach at their school. So if you want to take your certification and teach for another academic year in another country or even at a different school in the same country, sometimes it won't be accepted. I got certified at TEFL Iberia, which is located in Barcelona, Spain. I really cannot recommend them highly enough. They are fantastic. They offer visa service if you're going to go in person. They offer hybrid, which is part online and part in-person classes. And they also offer completely online courses. So I'm going to link them in the description of this video. So definitely check out TEFL Iberia if you're looking for an online program, or if you want to go study in Barcelona. It's fantastic there, and I definitely recommend it, obviously. The next thing you have to do is you have to think about where you want to teach. Job markets are different in different places. So when I taught in Spain, I was there on a student visa, which was wonderful. It was pretty easy to apply for. I was sponsored for my student visa by TEFL Iberia. And then when it was time for me to find a job, I was legally able to work, but I was only able to work up to 25 hours a week. Now, it was nice only working 25 hours a week because obviously that's part-time. So I had more free time, but the drawback is that you don't make as much money because you're only teaching part-time. You can make enough to live for sure, but I felt like my budget was definitely smaller when I was teaching abroad in Spain than it's going to be when I'm teaching in Korea. Going to Korea, I'm going to be on a full working visa. So I'll be on an E2 visa, which is for people who are coming to teach English. And so I can work a full schedule, and that's great. If you want to teach somewhere like Asia, what you need to do is you need to get connected with a recruiter. That's really, really important. I only really went on one website to find a recruiter. I went to Dave's ESL Cafe, and that's where I got connected with all the different recruiters that I talked to during my hiring process. There are definitely other websites out there. I will link some below, but Dave's ESL Cafe has everything in pretty much every place you could think of that you might want to teach. After you get on Dave's ESL Cafe, you might find some recruiting websites that look good to you. Do your research on them. Don't just take everything at face value, because obviously the point of a lot of these advertisements is to draw in teachers. And so you want to make sure you research your recruiting agency and you research any schools that you're going to be applying to. This is really important. Recruiting websites are going to ask you for a couple requirements. They're going to want a resume that includes your teaching experience if you have any. If you don't have any, also, don't panic. Include things like being a counselor at a summer camp or time spent as a nanny. So you can include things like that. It does not have to be formal teaching experience. Most schools are also going to prefer, if not mandate, that you have a 4-year degree, but they don't really care what your degree's in. So that's really important. Now, I feel like it might be possible to find jobs that will accept a high school degree or the equivalent if you're from somewhere other than the US, or might accept a 2-year associate's degree. Most of the ones that I applied to preferred and even required that you had a 4-year degree. They also do favor native English speakers, but that's possible to get around. I did know some English teachers who were not native English speakers, but they spoke it really fluently, and they were honestly some of the best teachers that I knew. So don't be discouraged. It's still totally possible, and you should absolutely go for it. So you have your requirements, you're TEFL certified, you've gotten connected with a recruiter. The next thing that's going to happen is the recruiter is going to start sending your resume and sending all of your, what's the word that I'm looking for? Sending all of your credentials to different schools. And then the schools will reach back out to the recruiter and say, okay, we're really interested in this candidate. And then they'll set up an interview. And before the interview, you should do your research on the school. This is just kind of a good tip for any interview, doesn't matter. You should do your research on the organization. The other thing this will allow you to do is to kind of figure out what kind of school you're dealing with and be able to kind of suss out how legit they may be or may not be. And then if you look at the website and there are any red flags that you see, then you know you can bring those up in the interview and you can just ask whoever you're interviewing with about those things point blank and see what they say. It was hard for me to remember my first time when I was applying to jobs. I didn't really fully understand how to advocate for myself. I just kind of took everything at face value, and I don't think I asked enough critical questions of my employers. The other thing you should do after you're offered a job, or even before you're offered a job, is you should look it up on a website. I'm going to find the website right here. It is called the Korean BLACKLIST. I'm going to post a link to this website down below as well. This is a website where teachers can post their experiences with different schools. You kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt because obviously disgruntled employees, disgruntled ex-employees in some cases, do not always leave the most unbiased reviews. Don't just take everything as fact. But I feel like this is a really helpful website because if you find your school and there are recurring and relatively recent complaints of the same things, like they pay their teachers late or they don't give enough lesson planning time, then you can kind of decide for yourself if you feel like the job is worth it to take or not. Even though it might seem like a good job at face value, you kind of have to remember that of course it seems like a great job. They want you to come. They need teachers. They want you to come teach at their school. So don't just accept a job because they make it seem great at first. Also, ask the school if you can talk to any of their teachers. Ask if they have teachers who have been there for more than 1 year and how long their kind of oldest teacher has been teaching for them. It'll give you a really good insight into the school's culture and the longevity of their teachers without you actually being there. So the other thing that I did was I made a list of my requirements. So everything that a job had to have. I joked about it on my last video, but I had a lot more requirements than just money. So I'm gonna tell you guys what they were. So I really wanted my school to pay for my flights to and from Korea. I either wanted them to provide me with a single apartment or give me a stipend for a single apartment. I also wanted paid vacation days. And I know this seems like a given, like, oh, of course you get paid vacation days, but it's not always a given. You need to read the fine print and make sure they're going to pay you for the built-in school holidays and give you some flexible vacation time that you can use at your own discretion. I also wanted paid sick leave. It seems like paid sick leave should just be a given, but sometimes you have to be really, really careful and read the fine print of your contract and make sure that your school's not gonna try to pull one over on you and not give you paid sick leave, which is also illegal. They can't do that. I wanted them to provide health insurance for me. I wanted them to specify that my lesson planning time was included in the contracted hours that I was going to work. I didn't want them to say that my working day was from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I had to go home and I had to lesson plan for 3 hours to get ready for the next day. I wanted there to be lesson planning time that was included in the time that I was going to be spending at the school. And again, make sure you have that in writing. I also wanted a minimum of 2.3 million won a month, which is about 2,000 US dollars. That is something that is basically just like the minimum for a first year teacher in Korea. Anything below that, do not accept. Make sure it's at least 2.3 million won. If you can negotiate for higher, go for it. Worst thing that anyone's ever going to do is tell you no. But if you're a first year teacher, you will probably have to be on the low end of the salary, but that's okay too. Just make sure it is not less than 2.3 million won. The other thing is that you want to do your research on if you want to teach with a public school or with a private school. I'm teaching with a private school. Figure out which one is best for you. I am really glad that I kind of stuck to my list of requirements and I didn't budge on those, because if you're going to make the move all the way to a new country, you need to make sure that this job is going to have everything that you need to make it worth your while, or else why are you taking it? Just make sure that you stick to your guns and you're not a pushover and you advocate for yourself. You have skills, you're certified, and they need you, so make sure that you stick up for yourself. If you guys have any questions, please leave me a comment down below. I would love to address anything you guys have. Would love to answer some questions, and definitely check out those links that I gave you. Dave's ESL Cafe, TEFL Iberia, and the Korean Blacklist have been life-saving websites for me. So I hope that they help you, and I hope that anybody who is interested in living abroad just goes for it. It is something that I'm so glad that I did, and something that I really feel has changed my life for the better. That is so cheesy. I kind of can't believe how cheesy it is when you talk about like living abroad, but like honestly, for a reason, because it is very life-changing. I'm sorry, but it is. So y'all should do it because I want your lives to be changed too. Also, you guys like my Christmas mug? I am so ready for Christmas. I know it's gonna get me some hate. I'm sure that it will, and that's fair.